Kind of back into our normal Wednesday routine. Good weather, good practice. Any questions?
Sean, since you didn't have a chance to talk to the team on Saturday, what was the messaging Monday when you had them back?
Listen, they were good, and obviously, these guys can communicate so much quicker now. Spoke to them, right prior. Surgery went well, all those things. And so, all the players individually, had their own, I'm sure, visit with them.
Sean, when you have a player that hasn't played on the field for as long as Stidham has in game-type situations, how do you approximate in a week's time the speed that you have to play at in a playoff game?
Well, they practice at that speed, and it's happened before, and you can't. I mean, it's happened to me a number of times, and he's a veteran, like real good decision maker, good arm strength, and so he's seeing a real good defense each week, and there's X amount of routes teams run, and so yeah, I mean, and then it's putting the plan together accordingly.
One of your first moves coming to Denver was signing Stidham.
That's right.
What was it about his game that made you want to jump on him?
We felt like I liked him first. We had good grades with him in New Orleans coming out of Auburn. New England drafted him, and then when you see a move where Josh goes to become the head coach, and then you see a transaction, and I have a lot of respect for Josh, and I knew that he liked him, and so he really played well in that 49er game, against a real good defense, and so that's when we became aggressive.
Is there a realistic chance?
Say it again.
Do you change much or anything about with the offense with Stidham?
We'll see. Yeah, I mean, there's certain things. We always do that with our personnel.
Is there a realistic chance?
I won't comment on that.
What's it taking just for him to even?
I won't comment on any injury.
What have you seen out of Stidham this week?
We just had our first practice. It went well.
Meetings. Have you seen him attack the week any differently? Or
No, he's a pro. He's really in tune to it. To answer your question, there was an extra day because we played Saturday. Sunday we had extra time on New England. Then Monday, then Davis. As soon as things are going into the plan, they get emailed to the quarterback room. And so I would say he, along with Sam and Ben, are getting the game plan like real time. Like if we, like last night, are doing base, once we finish discussing a play, a run or a pass, and we put a dot on it, like right away, and this is so much different than 10 years ago, right away that play gets sent to these guys. Like it's got dotted, it's in, and where like in the old days, at the end of the night, you'd send an email, they'd get it all, and so, yeah, and I would say, look, one of the harder things to do in season is to prepare at that position at any moment, like, you could go into a game. You know what I mean? And so that, and it's hard because you don't often get reps with the, and now he takes all those reps against the defense. Obviously now he's getting all the reps with the offense, but like that 85 Bears team, if you were a backup quarterback, you were playing. That documentary, I don't know how many, I think 12 of the 16, they knew they were going in. And so, but he's on top of it.
You brought up Jeff Hostetler, Nick Foles on Sunday. Do you talk to Parcells about Hostetler or do any research on how those guys
We've had a couple conversations. that injury happened a little earlier. Yeah, we've had a couple conversations. We speak regularly, so the topics might vary. Obviously, that topic came up, and then there were other things that, you know, that we discussed. Yeah.
You mentioned the takeaways going into last week. Obviously, a critical part of that win. How much can that be something that can kind of get on a roll?
It's. I mean, you guys, we've watched it, and they had bad weather in this past game, and so as I'm watching the Houston offense, and look, both defenses are playing well and turning the ball over, and then I watch the series end with a turnover, and then I click the clicker, and man, it's still 13-7, or, you know, and so the weather, I think, had a lot to do with some of the turnovers. But I think as we started the postseason and we said, hey, this has to be a point of emphasis, and to be +4 after the first week is a good thing. I think, in all honesty, fortunately we were. You know, it was one of those games where, you know, that single-handedly was the difference.
John, as you look back into your history with game planning for backup quarterbacks, what do you think about when you had to plan for Teddy or McCown that maybe can help you?
The message always, I feel like, when Drew went down in L.A., we flew from Los Angeles. Our plan was, we were playing at Seattle, so we stayed on the West Coast and we practiced at UW. And we stayed in Bellevue. And so our first team meeting, and I made the same comment. I said, I'm not worried about Bridgewater. I'm worried about everyone else in this room, making sure, you know, that their level is up to speed. And then, you know, and Kamara was out then after that game. And then so Bridgewater, Latavius, they won 2, won 3, won 4. And after the 5th one, this is about when Drew's thumb's getting better. I was just kidding him. I got to say that because sometimes when I'm kidding and people don't know I'm kidding, then all of a sudden I'm a bully. I called Drew and said, how you doing? He said, I'm getting ready to come back. And I said, well, make sure you take your time. You know, things are going well here. And I think the most important thing is, like, all right, and it's the same with tight ends or receivers or runners. Like, what are the things that they like? What are the things that they do well? What are the things, and then building it around that, and then understanding, you know, what kind of game do we see this being played? You know, so there are a number of things that go into a game plan, but it would start with his skill set, but then also the opponent.
Coach, for about the past month, you've had a message to fans every single week about noise. Do you have a message for them this week with being the final game?
Well, they're going to have plenty of rest after this one, 2 weeks. I can't. This is a team at the line of scrimmage that does a lot. Like, Josh is fantastic at putting together good plans offensively. I mean, and so there's alerts, there's kills, there's all, and so that, look, let's go. You know, right when again, I keep emphasizing, just as the huddle begins until the ball snap.
Coach, how do you tell Jarrett and convey to him, like,
Say it again?
With so much at stake, how do you just convey to Jarrett, like, hey, go out and be yourself and play football? Do you have
That's his personality. He's gonna rip it, you know, and that'll be our approach. I mean, hey, he's got this calm demeanor that I think suits him well. He's played in big games, college, and you know, I said this at the start of the season. I felt like our 2 was inside the best 32, and I think everyone feels that way. But that's why that sign was important. And you don't know when it's happening, you know. But I'm glad it happened. I'm glad, you know, that acquisition took place.
John, Mike Vrabel said a couple days ago that they were actually trying to get him back. You know, what was just your
So I
message?
think the impressions, look, and I know Bill well, Belichick, and I consider Braves a good friend in this industry. I have a ton of respect for Josh. I think there are a lot of people that felt that way.
When you look at his team, do you see traits of him as a player, Vrabel, that translate to how?
Oh,
they
absolutely,
play?
absolutely. I look. I remember him as a player, way back in when I was with the Giants, and then he was there when we had joint practices. I think it was Tom's first or second year. We had just gone to the Super Bowl. They were going to win the Super Bowl the next year, upset the Rams. Bledsoe's going to get hurt, and Tom's going to play. And then, but I'd say got to know him more professionally when he became the head coach at Tennessee, and we would be at these league meetings, and he's passionate, and I think his team, you see him play to that passion, and when the Lions were asking me about Dan Campbell, I made this comment, and it's a compliment to both coaches. I said, you're getting an offensive version of Vrabel, a guy who was a heck of a player, tough, and their teams will reflect that. And then, look, there's that uniqueness of going back home for him, a place that certainly he's got a lot of pride for what they've done there.
Coach, you did a lot of research on the quarterbacks in the 24 draft. What did you think of Drake May and in your evaluation coming out?
Real good. I mean, look, that class, when you watch what the group of them are doing, there's been a couple injuries, but I think we had high regards for him.
Sean, RJ's 24-yard catch and run on the game-winning drive in overtime. His ability to kind of make those plays in space, how significant has
You
that
saw it in film. Now they didn't. His senior year, they threw it to him more, but there's times where he's like maybe the ball's dumped to him, the defender has an angle, and so he has that make you miss, and I would say that balance, that short area quickness, that makes him effective, ball in hand as a receiver.
Sean, you've mentioned Josh McDaniels a couple times. People talk about you and Andy as play callers, or Kyle and McVay and their tree. Josh didn't maybe get brought up as much, but why do you think that is, and what do you think about him, the play caller?
Well, forget the tree thing for a second, all right? And just, man, he's won a lot of Super Bowls, and I just know from quarterbacks that I've worked with, I know Josh well enough to know we study certain films. We study his film. When we look at league trends, there's certain offenses we'll look at. He, like ourselves, believes in having a two-back offense at times to control the game, fullback, and so it's always good tape, and there's a lot that goes into it, and so it'll be a good challenge for our defense.
Sean, it's 10 years ago now, but Jarrett Stidham was the #1 dual-threat quarterback coming out of high school. How do you view him as a runner?
I never knew he was the #1 dual threat coming out of high school, and nor do I really care. I view him as someone who can move and elude. He's got a good pocket awareness. Now, he's a different type quarterback than Bo, but yeah, we did. I can recall all the homework. Baylor, the transfer, all of it, and so I would say he's a real good foot athlete. You see that? Go ahead.
I'm just curious as to, in terms of Bo's recovery, can he be around you guys, or how
Yeah,
is
once he, I'm sure there's going to be a protocol back in Alabama. I don't have a date of when he arrives back, but we look forward to seeing him soon.
Would you like him around the guys
Absolutely.
when he can be at some point?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All of our guys that have been injured are part of this team, and so, yeah, sooner the better.
Is he helping Jarrett at all this week, like virtually?
Well, he just had surgery. He just had surgery.
Yeah.
Coach, there's not a lot of film on Jarrett Stidham, so as teams look for an advantage, isn't it an advantage that Josh McDaniels knows him so well?
I think there's enough film, and certainly Josh knows him, and you know, I don't think it's this like we've never seen who this person, you know, and so it's what we do with him that's going to be most important. But certainly Josh knows him. He coached him, and you know, he and I have talked about him.
Names were brought up earlier, but Hostetler and Foles obviously had the ultimate win, getting to the Super Bowl and winning. How can Jarrett look to follow in their footsteps, in your opinion?
Well, it's a team game, right? And so, you know, both cases there were different scenarios, but the key is, you know, how we as a team prepare this week for the team we're getting ready to play Sunday, and we're playing a real good team. So both teams ended up with the same record, and so that's really the short answer.
Sean, you talked about
a couple of the
3 more questions. Go ahead.
After their wild card game, a couple of the Chargers players said they couldn't figure out what they were doing coverage-wise. Obviously, they forced a bunch of turnovers last week. What is that a strength of their defense, the disguise part of it, or how do you sort of?
I think in the last 2 years, man, the Chargers. I mean, every week you put on film, and defenses have gotten so good at showing man. You know, let's say you put a back outside of a receiver and a linebacker went out, and then you brought him back in. And Mike was one of the early people to do this, Shanahan. You know, he'd put a big body outside of a receiver, and then he'd see a safety or a linebacker. And back then it was all, you know, right away man. And then you'll see that, and then they'll spin and play 2. And so it's this back and forth. How do we uncover man or zone? And that's a big point of tonight in third down. Like, it starts with how can we uncover the coverages? And so I think a lot of teams in the last 2 or 3 years have gotten very apt at that. You don't want these always, you know, and so this is a team that does a good job with that, you know. They keep a top on the coverage. They got real good corners and safeties, and then extremely talented nickel. So how do you determine it? You know, there's different ways you try to create movement, maybe, but that'll be a big study tonight.
Sean, how can the altitude and elevation affect the visitors and obviously being advantage?
I just know how it affected us, and we didn't know what to do. So at the time, we were coming 2 days early, which was the worst thing to do. Then later, you know, getting here, finding, you know. So I don't really know. I know there's science to it, and so that's all I know.
Sean, the way that things have played out the last few days, you've seen a lot in your career, but how unique just has it been, Bo, to Jarrett, and the position that you're in, trying to do this as a play caller?
There's nothing like it. I mean, they're just being, you know, advancing, you know, to this position. There's nothing like it. It's when your alarm clock goes off and you know you're eating faster because every minute. That's why I said 3 more questions. There's going to be 1 more after this because there's work to do. But I say that respectfully. But there's nothing like it when it's just ticking, and you're wanting to make sure you looked at every bit of film, that you haven't missed anything, and you're playing another good football team, and then you know what's at stake, and you know what's next, and so yeah, it's exciting. 1 more.
Sean, what's been your impression of the leap that Drake May made from year 1 to year 2?
Really impressive. I think his decision making. One of the strengths with watching him is not only when he comes underneath, it's his touch underneath to the underneath throws. You know, sometimes those balls are 6 yards away from the halfback, and it's, you know, and then I wasn't aware, he finished the season 4th in rushing yards behind, the guys that we would expect near the top. So he's extremely fast. And those come from, obviously pocket scrambles, but he can run. And that creates, we had that challenge a week ago. It seems like every third week you have that challenge of someone that you have to make sure your pocket rush is on point. Thank you.
How you guys doing? Good.
Broncos country is totally behind you, City. Hashtags going crazy for you. What does it feel like to have this fan base just embrace you in this moment?
Yeah, look, I mean, this is not about myself. First of all, I want to, obviously, my thoughts and prayers have been with Bo since Saturday night. I mean, it's crushing because he's one of my best friends. And Sam and I were talking about this. Like, Sam and I probably spend more time with him than his wife does right now. And that's just the nature of the business that we're in. When training camp starts, like, that's just how it is. Like, I see Bo more than I see my kids, So it's just one of those things. You spend so much time with someone, you see how hard they work, how good of a teammate they are, and then that happens, and you feel crushed, for him and everything. So, yeah, obviously my prayers and stuff have been with him. So
in 2019, you were drafted by the Patriots. Now you have a chance to beat them to go to the Super Bowl. Have you had a moment to process all of that?
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, obviously I'm very appreciative of New England for giving me a shot in this league, drafting me. Obviously, Bill's not there anymore, but I know there's still front office guys there that were there when I was there. Nick Caserio is down in Houston now, the GM. He was a big part of that too. Josh McDaniels, who obviously was my play caller. I mean, I've only had 2 play callers in my life, Sean and Josh. So super appreciative of them for sure. But really just fired up for the opportunity for these guys in this locker room. And, we're looking forward to Sunday and getting out there and, seeing what we got.
Jarrett, what's the biggest 7-year veteran for the last 3 years here? How ready do you feel for this moment?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think every week I've always, going back to when I was backing up Russ, I've prepared the same every single week like I am the starter. Just hasn't obviously been that way, minus 2 weeks. So my preparation hasn't changed one bit. And, yeah, that's just kind of how I view it.
Can you take us through after the game when you found out? Did you know on the field that he was hurting, and then switching to realizing that you're going to be the starting quarterback for the AFC Championship?
Yeah, I think whenever we had that last drive of the game, he comes off the sideline, and you could tell he was in some sort of pain, but, we didn't really know, and obviously we're all excited, that we're going to the AFC Championship, and whenever we get back in the locker room, we didn't really find out until, the x-rays came back, because Sam and I were both in there with him whenever the doctors were looking at him, and they go do the x-rays, and I went, took a shower, came back, and got dressed, and went back in the training room, and that's when I found out. And, again, just devastating for him, obviously, and like I said earlier, my heart goes out to him and, everything that he means to this team, because obviously we wouldn't be in this position without Bo. And, yeah, I just want to go – I know all of us on offense, and I know the whole team, we want to go out there and make them proud, this Sunday.
Jarrett, what's the biggest challenge in getting to speed in just the 1 week of prep that you have?
Yeah, look, I think reps are obviously everything, but – we practice full speed here. That's one thing that I love about Sean. And, I was fortunate whenever I played in New England for Bill, it was the same way. Like, you try to make practice as hard as possible. That way Sunday it's not a shock. So that's how we practice here, and that's how we'll always practice here.
What is the sweet spot between playing free and doing too much?
Yeah, look, I think what I always go back to in any game, regular season, preseason, AFC Championship, it's still the same game. So obviously there's implications and winner advances, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's still football, and that's how I view it. So I'm not treating it any differently. I'm not treating my preparation any differently. I'm just going to go out there and play and be myself. I think that's the biggest thing is, I'm not going to try to be somebody that I'm not, and I know how I can play, and I know the kind of guys I got around me and the kind of team that we have, so we all just have to play within ourselves.
I know this isn't how you want to get this opportunity, but you said you believe you can be a starting quarterback in this league. What does it mean to you to have this opportunity to get a chance to go out there and play at such a high stake?
Yeah, no, I think really every quarterback probably feels the same way in the league, and I don't obviously want to talk for everybody, but we're all very competitive, and that's how it's always been. And obviously, any chance you get to step out on the field, you want to do your best, and do your best for your teammates and your coaches and everything. So that's really what I'm focused on is what is my job throughout the week, throughout each day, and then obviously on Sunday, what am I asked to do on each and every play, and try to put us in the best position to win.
Jarrett, you're a self-proclaimed vibes guy, so in this role, can you influence the vibes more, or does someone else have to help pick you up there?
No, I feel like I'm still a vibe guy. I think somebody was just in. I think it was Palmer over here. He's looking down at his phone, but he was asking me what my turtle box was, and it's Mr. Turtle. So I like to keep the vibes high in the locker room, and hopefully bring that to the huddle on Sunday. But yeah, I mean we're playing in the AFC Championship. We're one of the last 4 teams playing. Like, what's not fun about this? So we're going to go out there and give it the best we got and hopefully come out victorious.
Mike Vrabel made pretty clear that this offseason trying to get you back. What was just your decision making as far as just re-signing in Denver, knowing that you were going to be behind Bo in every circumstance?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's always opportunities out there and stuff, but I think at the end of the day there was a combination of things that went into my decision to come back here, and I believe in Sean and Davis and Joe and in our room and being behind Bo and helping him grow, and I take a lot of pride in that, and I felt like over the last 2 years that I was here that I got a lot better, and I think the way Davis has coached us over these last 3 years now has really helped all of us improve, and that was just one thing I wanted to come back and be a part of, and I felt like being here the last 2 years and coming in with Sean and signing and everything, it's pretty evident that he's got the train rolling in the right direction, and I don't think anybody can argue that, and I wanted to be a part of it. So.
Jarrett, have you, a few more for Jarrett.
Been out in public this week? Have you heard any support from fans or anything like that?
I have not. I think I went to Target with my kids earlier this week. It's been about it. So no, incognito. Nobody notices.
Jarrett, have you thought at all about, and it's tough because it's been such a whirlwind, but how this could possibly change your life?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, I'm not focused on anything but Sunday. What is my job on each and every play? What is my job? How can I help my teammates succeed on Sunday? I do not care about anything outside of the next 5 days and what my job is. So that's the only thing I'm focused on.
You look back at the history, a guy like Nick Foles, backup quarterback wins the Super Bowl, Costello before that, do you a lot of backup quarterbacks have had success in the playoffs.
Yeah, obviously what those guys, have done and accomplished is incredible. But I'm not going to get, too far ahead of myself or anything like that. Like I said, I just focused on the day-to-day right now and, being prepared for Sunday and trying to go out there and win a ball game.
Final two, Zach, and then Luca.
Have you noticed the thousands of people that have changed their profile picture to you?
So I'm actually not on social media at the moment, but I have had multiple people send me the LeBron meme with the headphones and the sunglasses. So I guess that's pretty funny. But it's great. I mean, Broncos country, in my opinion, arguably the best fan base in sports. So, really excited to get out there in front of them. And, it's been a long time since this game's been played here. So I know they'll be rocking on Sunday.
Last one, Luca.
After Bo won the job last year, you told everyone here that you viewed yourself as a starting quarterback in this league. From that point, how do you feel like you've developed as a player, and have you kept that same just mentality day by day, every single day since?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing in this business is if you get complacent with your job, their job upstairs is to find someone that's better than you. So you always have that chip on your shoulder to keep working, no matter the circumstance. And that hasn't changed for me. So every day I wake up and thank God that I'm able to be a quarterback in the NFL and just go to work every day with a great group of guys and coaches and support staff and everybody that's involved. And, we're just all really fortunate to be here, playing in this game this late in the season. So, that mentality's never changed.
Thank you, Jarrett. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
What they do, Ski? They didn't tape the Gatorade up here. That's crazy.
Courtland, what was the swing of emotions? You had time to reflect on, obviously the euphoria of that win, Bo, pivoting to Jarrett.
Yeah.
What was your mental frame like across Saturday night and Sunday?
Yeah, that was my bad too. For everybody that was there. I didn't get to talk to you after the game, but I was in the shower when I found out about Bo, and it was. It went from being like, a crazy high to just like, it's kind of unexplainable, emotional roller coaster in a sense that, that dude has done so much, man. If there's anybody that's deserving of this opportunity in this space, it's him. For us to even have a chance to win that game, he made some huge plays throughout the whole game, but in fourth quarter and overtime, he did a great job of getting us an opportunity to go win that game. And you hear news like that, and then it just it's a gut check, And so I went and sat with him, man, and, I just sat with him and just was with him, because, he was to get the news that he just got, he was taking it well. But I knew that he was hurting. And so, it was an emotional roller coaster in terms of that. And it took, I would say, a good amount of that night to kind of transition the energy towards, all right, but I know Jarrett very, very well. Been able to spend a lot of time with him in terms of OTAs, training camps, preseason, getting some reps with him throughout the week, whatever it may be. And so, I have no doubt in my mind that Jarrett's going to be ready to go play. If there's a guy that prepares as well as Bo, it's him. He goes in, he knows the entire playbook. He knows everything that needs to be done for us to go out there and have success. And it was a quick. It was one of those things you have to. It's a quick transition. You're sad, and then you have to realize that we still got a job to go do. And that the guys that are going to be out there are qualified to go out there and do what they need to do. And Jarrett's qualified. He's had success in the NFL and going out and playing games, and he's a very, very talented guy in terms of football IQ and just football ability. And so, man, we're just looking forward to going out there and having a great week of preparation. We had a great day of practice today. We're gonna go in there and watch the film and continue to excel at the little details of things that we can be better at, so that we can be at our best for him and for each other.
How big a surprise was it? I mean, you knew when you hit the showers, you found out for sure. Did you know on the field that he was hurting at all?
No, that's the crazy thing. I was telling when people came in and told me, I was like, that's not true, because after the game, I go up to him on the sideline and I'm celebrating with him, and I embrace him, and we go do our thing, and we get into the locker room. I get to see him again. I embrace him again. Everything's good. I'm like, everything's cool. And then I get to the shower, and everybody's like, yeah, that happened. And I was like, I saw him multiple times, and there was not one thing. He didn't say one thing to me. There wasn't anything that was leaning towards that he was hurt in any facet. And so, I think that speaks volumes to his toughness and the way that he just is who he is. The way that he plays the game, the way that he's played all season. He's fought through adversity all season and has given us everything, every ounce that he could give us, every single week. And so I think that spoke volumes to just the man that he is and the character that he has. He didn't say, he didn't try to make this big scene. It was like, oh, I just won the game and I hurt myself. It was like, nah, like he didn't want to steal the joy from the moment from anybody. He kind of just let it happen. And, once everything kind of settled, he just let everything happen. But like I said, I think that speaks volumes to the man that he is and the football player he is and the character that he has for how he carries himself.
What
Courtland talked to you a lot about the journey you've been on here, being so close now to a Super Bowl, obviously the first time in your career. What is this week like for you, and how eager are you for Sunday?
Yeah, shoots, man. Excited. You know, coach reminded us of we're one of 4 teams that are still practicing right now. You know, everybody else is at home, you know, enjoying their off season. And when you look at it from that perspective, it's such a blessing to be one of 4. You know, it's something that this team has earned, and you know, I don't think that anybody takes it for granted at all. I think everyone is embracing the moment, embracing this opportunity, and we have a locker room that's full of guys that are ready to you know, take advantage of what's in front of us. You know, we have a huge opportunity ahead of us. You know, a lot of guys either haven't really been in the playoffs. We got a few guys from other teams that have experienced, you know, conference championships and experienced playing the Super Bowls. But this bunch that we have in this locker room, man, the brotherhood that we have in this locker room, I think that we all want to be able to continue to keep experiencing these M&Ms, as Coach Vitt would say, you know, making these memories. And this is one of those memories that we get a chance to go out there and make. But, you know, it all starts with the preparation this week. And I think that, like I said, we're off to a good start based on how we went out in practice today.
What is the top attribute you see in Jarrett Stidham that comes to his team?
He's a leader. You know, he may not have the starting job attached to his name going throughout the season, and he may not have a C on his chest, but the guy's had success in his career, from high school to college to now. You know, he's had success, and he's been a highly sought after guy. You know, there is a reason why he's been able to stay here, and they've done a really good job of making sure that he didn't leave here. You know, for the unknowns, the situations that may pop up, something like this. You know, you always say, God forbid, someone gets hurt, but in this sport, it happens. And in the biggest moment, in one of the biggest moments in a lot of our careers, you know, he's stepping up and ready to go take advantage of his opportunity because of the preparation and the way that he carries himself, you know, week in and week out.
Last one, Zach. Marvin had 8 catches, 93 yards.
Yeah.
That touchdown at the end of the game. How cool was it to see him step up into that moment?
Yeah, man. I mean, shoes. Marv is special, man. I tell boys all the time, you know, we have such a unique room. I think that we have a room full of guys that are talented in different aspects, and we all carry our abilities well. And, you know, I think people think that Marv's just this, Marv's this specialist guy that they kind of use on offense. It's like, nah. If you go look at it, you know, Marv was a very, very successful receiver in high school, a very, very successful receiver in college. He wasn't just a specialist guy. You know, that's just one thing that he came here and wound up being really, really good at. And, you know, which is nice. But Marv is a hell of a receiver, and you know, I was happy to see him be able to go out and have the success that he had, because he has so many qualities, so many good qualities. You know, I say he has for a receiver, he has some elite ball skills, and he can track the ball very, very well. I don't know if it comes from catching punts or whatnot, but he does a really good job tracking the ball, and you know, being able to put his hands on it, making crazy catches. But his speed is something that I think people wind up losing track of. They think they know how fast he is until they get in front of him and they realize that he's floating. I always say it looks like Marv's not running fast, and then he gets on you like, dad gum, he moving. So it was cool to be able to watch Marv have that success, and you know, I know that he's going to continue to have, you know, more success because of the way he practices, the way that he prepares, the way that he takes care of his body. And you know, I'm looking forward to that our whole room, our offense, our defense, and the specialists going out and having a great week of preparation and a great week on Sunday.
All right, Court, thank you.
Appreciate y'all.
What was your reaction to the news about Bo's injury, and then obviously now Stidham taking over?
Yeah, man. Obviously, it was a bummer. You know, I feel for him. You know, just the work that he put in consistently, and having a season end like this. You know, obviously, after the game, emotions running high. Then when I heard that news, it felt like my energy was drained a little bit. So, you know, I'm praying for him, praying for a speedy recovery. But I'm looking forward to this week's matchup and seeing what Stidham got. So.
You've gone against Stidham in practice quite a lot. What have you seen from him?
You know, I've seen a lot of confidence. He's got a type of mojo with him, a type of confidence with him that you rarely see. And I'm excited for him for this opportunity. He's got everything it takes, to shine on this level, and I'm looking forward to it.
How do you define a quarterback mojo? What gives Stidham his mojo?
Just the way how he operates, man. He's just cool, calm, and collected. He come into the building every day with a smile on his face. And, he talks a little trash here and there, and you got to enjoy that, and you look forward to that. When you see that confidence, it definitely resonates with the whole team for sure.
As one of the rival leaders of the team, how do you guys pick the energy back up after kind of a pretty deflating moment on Saturday night?
Yeah, we just got to find a way. Obviously, losing a guy like Bo, the emotions, just tells a lot. But at the end of the day, we got to find a way and, build each other up, because, we ain't make it this far, just to come this far. So we realize that, we have a lot on the horizon to look forward to. And, this is championship football now. So we got to lock in and buy into the process.
You guys have won so many games with your defense all year long. Is this one of those games that you guys kind of take it upon yourself to say, this is our game, we can deliver this kind of thing?
Yeah, no doubt. We always feel like every time we step out there on the field that we could change the game, always make game-changing plays, and that's what we put on our shoulders, we just have full trust in each other to make plays throughout the game and to change the outcome of the game. So it's another week where we feel like, because each and every week the opponent gets tougher, the matchup gets tougher, and that's what playoff football is about. So each and every week we feel like we got to step up our game and level up our game as well. So.
Speaking of playoff football, New England hasn't won a playoff game in Denver. How do you guys look to keep that streak going?
Just executing the right way. Obviously it's a new team, a different team, so we got to prepare the same way. And, we got to study right, study our opponent, know our opponent, and, find a way to win at the end of the day.
What did you think when you saw Marvin make that touchdown catch on Saturday? Because Sean said that they had run that play against you guys in, the one offense against one defense during the week. What was it like?
Yeah, I've been hearing that all week, how that play started. But I was like, man, if y'all did that, man, y'all definitely should run into the game, man, because it was a good play, a great concept. And, when I seen it, then Sean told me it was the same play. I was like, yeah, it was the right call for sure. And it ended up working in the pivotal moment of the game. So I'm glad it worked out that way.
Matt Lacey from Drake May and the Patriots offense, what are the challenges?
They possess a lot of challenges. Obviously, Drake's he's a great quarterback. He's got a lot of playmakers on the perimeter. They got a great run game, so we got to find a way to eliminate the explosives on their side and find a way to contain them. So looking forward to the matchup.
Thank you, Pat.
Yep.
Thanks, Matt.